Justin, I think you're muted.
Ah,
Okay, hold on. We'll go back. Hold on. We'll go back. And
good
go.
morning. Welcome to another great edition of the Torque and Thrust Talk Show. I'm Justin. We've got some great information lined up for you today. Some news articles, some jargon, and of course, the weekly discussion topic. Today's episode stands out to be a great one. Grown adults don't cry. And with that, let's get the other guys in here.
There we go.
That's better.
Classic.
I was sitting there looking. I'm like, I see his mouth moving. So I was like, I'm really confused because I've had issues in the past, like our first episode where I wasn't hearing stuff.
Yep.
So I was like, I don't know if that's him. I don't know if that's me or what that was. But here we are.
That is great.
Yeah, we're here now.
And we're here.
So, with that, as he takes a giant swig of coffee, Tommy, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well this morning. How are you? It's kind of a early morning for me, but I was able to knock out of work a little bit early this morning.
Oh, there you go. Bill, and how's the day going for you?
It's going. Not too bad. Like Tommy said early, it's been a busy week. I've been finishing up last week. I think I talked about the floors that we had put in. So I've been doing a lot of dolting, finishing up the baseboards and putting little itty bitty pieces of wood underneath our door frames, sanding them over and painting them to try to make them look continuous. But other than that, it's not been a bad week at all. How about you, Justin?
It hasn't been bad. Just kind of been transitioning stuff over, getting my deer hunting season stuff out, putting turkey stuff away, and getting ready for what the fall has in store.
Nice. Very nice.
With that, what do you guys say we talk about some news?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Let's
So-
do it.
All right. So
Bill, take it away.
you got it. And absolutely no problem. No problem at all. Well, good morning, everybody. And it's starting off, not starting off, I guess we're midweek now, but kind of carrying off what we had last week. This week in aviation history on October 22nd, 1797. This is in France. So please bear with me. I am probably going to butcher this name. André Jacques Gagarin. I got the first two right, but the last one I don't know how to pronounce. Makes the first ever parachute descent at an air show in France from 2,300 feet from an air balloon. So if you remember, in 1783 is when the Montgolfier brothers started with their balloon, right? We talked about that last week on October 15th. 1797. So what is that? 16 years later? No, wow, bad math. Terrible math. 14 years later, they're already jumping out of balloons with parachute. So that's what was happening this week in 1797 in terms of aviation history. Now, for current news for the aviation industry, now we all are aware of what happened with Horizon Air, with the attempted disablement of the aircraft from somewhere outside of Seattle to San Francisco. We're not brushing over it. We're still waiting for official reports and stuff to come out before we're able to report on it, because the last thing we want to do on this talk show is jump to speculation and have facts wrong. We're trying to avoid that as much as we can. So when I present this, we're not ignoring the fact that that happened. We're not brushing over it. We're waiting to circle back to it because we need more information to talk about it. So in lighter news, though, the news that I'm talking about today, and this is actually something, once again, that'll affect the general flying public, which I think is pretty cool, is United Airlines is going to change how economy class boarding will occur. I don't know if, people remember back in the day. I remember back when they used to board the airplanes from the back to the front. But obviously, with bigger airplanes, that becomes a problem. Airbus, there was a JetBlue Airbus just recently. They got tipped on the tail. About 2 years ago, there was a United 737-900 that also got tipped on its tail because of weight and balance. It's just a huge seesaw. And I know Airbus people make fun of my Boeing, but we got a kickstand on the 737-900 to prevent that. So just saying, we're cool because we have a kickstand. So does motorcycles. But now this is a big subject of, because the big problem with boarding right now is overhead space, and just it takes forever to board because they're not boarding from the back to the front. So United Airlines is introducing a new way to board. It's kind of a new innovative way. So the United Airlines, and this is only economy. So if you're like Premier 1K, Global Elite, or Global Million Miler, your status will still, those people will still be able to pre-board with the military veterans, the people who need a little extra time down the jet bridge, people with kids. So the front half is going to be the same. And also if you're in first class, because I know first class people, they got to be on the airplane first. But that's also for weight and balance more than anything, to make sure the airplane doesn't tip on its tail. But for economy, this is how it's going to change. So United Airlines plans to implement a new boarding process where window seat passengers in economy board first. So hear me out. The most annoying thing for me when I'm traveling in the back is when I have an aisle seat, I board with my group, and then later on, I have to get up and let 50 million people into my row, right? Everybody who has flown has had to deal with that.
Yep.
So United plans on to having a boarding process where it's window, middle, and then aisle. So it should be a quicker boarding process that way. Most passengers will still board in the same order as before, with a priority given to those with special needs and military personnel. Premium cabins and frequent flyers will also board early. While this change may save time and increase aircraft utilization, the hassle of boarding windows, the middles, and aisles may outweigh the operational benefits. By the way, this is from Simple Flying. This is not directly from United. This is from Simple Flying. Um, so the boarding groups. So right now, like normally, if you have like a credit card with United or hold some sort of status, you're with Group One or Group Two. The average rows are usually Group Three. But the way that they change to change this, I'm trying to find it here real quick. Is basically Group Three will be your windows, Group Four will be your um, middles, and then group 5 will be aisles, and then group 6 will be that economy base or basic economy selection where you're a little bit more limited on what you can bring on the airplane. Now, the biggest question is about carry-ons, right? Because that's always the biggest thing. And honestly, and I don't know if I can't remember when they changed the carry-on policy, but the biggest real concern, especially for me when I'm commuting, is if I am in group 6, right? Because I do wait to board with my group, especially on smaller airplanes, the overhead space may not be available, right? Because the overhead space, especially on the older airplanes, can't accommodate everybody's carry-on. Those overhead spaces were designed back in the day when the carry-on was a briefcase, right? Not full-blown 22-inch rollerboards nowadays. So now the biggest problem is, okay, so now it used to be like group 6, group 7, the basic economy people that would have to worry. That's why they're limited to how much, or I think they have one less baggage or a piece of baggage they can bring on board an airplane. But the problem is now if you're in an aisle seat, you may run out of baggage space because you're going to be the last group on. Now, so it's more efficient, but you're kind of backing those people into a corner. So that is something that's kind of worrisome that this article brings up. And I kind of agree because there's nothing more irritating than purposely bringing a carry-on so you don't have to check your bag, and then finding out you get on board, there's no overhead space. You literally have no choice but to check it. So this is going to be interesting to see because, being in part of this airline, the boarding process does take a long time. And usually the delayed factor or the limiting factor for us on time is either bags or passenger boarding. So I'm going to be really curious to see if this actually is going to work. What do you guys think? Do you think boarding from the windows out is going to actually help with the boarding process?
It
Hmm.
it might, because like in the times that I've flown, and I've always booked a window seat,
Mhm,
always. But you have those folks that would, book middle and aisle seat,
mhm,
and somebody riding single books that window seat. Those two folks have to stop what they're doing, get up, get out, block the entire aisle, let the window in,
mhm,
sit back. That you do that for what, 20, 30 rows, and now everyone's like, okay, come on, just
mhm.
come on.
Well, and also with the whole bag thing too, if you think about it, if you have to go to the back of the airplane to find bag space, right? And then you have to go upstream. I call it salmon fishing because
Yeah.
you're going upstream. And then on top of that, let's say like right now, if you are in the window seat, then you got to get to your place, have the other two people get out, and then you jump in.
Right.
So I think it's more logical than boarding from back to front because we just can't do back to front because of the loading problems, right? Because of
Yeah.
the weight and balance. So what do you think, Tommy? Because Tommy, did you ever experience boarding like what I was talking about, boarding from the back to the front
Yes.
back in the
Yes.
day?
Believe it or not, in Gainesville, when last year after I had moved my son and the former wife down to Florida, I was coming up. I was going Gainesville to Charlotte
Mm-hmm.
in a CRJ because Gainesville is about this big,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
and we actually came down onto the ramp, and I boarded through the back of the aircraft. There was something up with the jetway, and they're like, "Well, we're going to board this way." So they boarded the plane from back to front through the rear door.
That must
and
have been a
the air
170.
stairs. Yeah, and the flight wasn't sold out. There was only maybe half the aircraft full.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have a problem because when I book a seat, I also book a window seat, but I always shoot for sitting towards the back of the wing because I like to see the flaps come down, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the boards come up, the ailerons working. It keeps me entertained during flight. And before for takeoff and landing and in between, I just sleep. But
Yep.
it I'm a very light packer, and usually whenever I travel, wherever I'm staying has a washing machine. So I will literally pack for a 4-day trip
Mm-hmm.
in a backpack. I have a big tactical backpack that I could fit. So I'm just going to crush it and slide it on the seat in front of me. So the
Yeah.
overhead isn't really like a thing for me, but I believe that statistically I would be a minority on that since everyone always has something that's got to go in the bin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't like that idea. I know me personally, and I know you guys will find this hard to believe, that would aggravate me.
No way. Tommy getting
No.
aggravated?
Yeah,
No.
especially if like
No
I'm
way.
in the
No.
last group boarding the aircraft and be like, yo, dude, really?
Yeah.
I
So I mean,
paid however many hundreds for this.
yeah. And I mean, I think United's taking a step in the right way. And I'm not saying that because I work for them. I'm saying that because boarding has become a circus of a process.
Yeah.
So having a little more logic to it, I think would help. I think it really would. So boarding, but like I said, you run into that issue with, you know, with the overhead. So it's like I don't even know how to begin to solve that issue unless you're really gonna police. Because honestly, when I'm in the back, and there's overhead space running out, the problem is Tommy and his backpack. Although actually no, it's not Tommy and his backpack because Tommy's putting his backpack underneath the seat in front of him. The problem is people putting purses and like sweaters and
What would be
jackets.
their personal items?
Correct. What's supposed to be because they're trying to get what's happening is they're trying to maximize. Don't get me wrong, I understand that, especially on longer flights, trying to maximize their feet space. But the problem is the seats underneath or the underneath the seat in front of you is intended for your backpacks, for your sweaters, for your purses, not the overhead. Overhead is supposed to be for your rollerboards. So that's also a problem. So I could see where that uh may help out, I guess, with this whole baggage issue. But is the gate agent and the crew has to heavily police that to make sure that they're maximizing the space overhead. And who knows, it may not be a problem because the new aircraft that the interiors that we're getting are the bigger overhead bins where you turn the bag sideways like books, and you can fit. I think everybody. That's what they're advertising. They can fit everybody's one rollerboard. But as soon as somebody puts a backpack up there or their winter coat up there, it kind of screws up the system.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I don't know.
see, I always would just, and this is me personally, I want to be able to get to my stuff.
That's just you, Tommy.
Yeah. So, it's going to be right there by me. I don't want
Well,
to ask someone to get up so I could reach into the overhead bin
I would say
during flight.
most what like when I get in, I'll have most of my stuff. I have like a little wired carry case, like my headphones, my chargers, and stuff. So all I do is unzip my bag. I know exactly where it is. Grab it, put it in the seat back, zip, and then put stuff away. So, but then again, I also do this every single week, so there is a little bit of experience.
Yeah,
With
you've
that, I
kind
guess.
of developed a system, and
I do to minimize my time in the aisle and to let people go by. Yeah, I do have a system, so I guess that kind of
it's different when you do something for a living, like you flying, me driving. Like there are certain tendencies
yeah.
that you see in other people that you're
Hmm.
just like, yeah, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to be that guy.
That guy.
Exactly.
There's a lot of that. It was like, oh, I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Because we have all been on flights where there's that one person, like just before the safety announcements, when they tell you really have to sit down now so we could push and go. And they're just constantly up and down,
Well,
getting stuff out of their bag.
Oh, I forgot my book.
yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
forgot my
Well,
bookmark.
you know what's killing me nowadays, and we can talk about this on another episode, but is they land, we taxi clear, and people already getting up and pulling off their seatbelts. I don't understand that. But anyways, that's a whole discussion or another week that we can have. It's just we'll have a discussion about etiquette in our career. I think that'll probably be good for next episode. But there's just a lot of there's a lot of stuff
Our
that you
pet peeves.
pet peeves are just etiquette things, like things
Yeah.
that I've seen change since I've started flying versus now. But kind of circling back so we don't go too far on a tangent, I do think that this boarding process change will have its difficulties, but I think overall I think it'll be beneficial. And I
Yeah.
think as long as it's beneficial, because it's always been like this in the industry, United does something or Delta does something, and then once the other airlines go, oh, okay, then the rest follow. So
Right.
I think United's probably going to set a precedent on this, and as long as it works, I think we'll see all the other airlines follow suit. So, all right, so that was it for aviation news. Like I said, a little bit shorter, a little bit briefer. We'll go more into what happened with Horizon Air as we get more information in the upcoming episodes. We just didn't want to touch on that too early. But up next is going to be Tommy D with some gaming and aviation news. I think. Are you doing gaming and aviation today?
I'm actually doing EMS career today.
Oh God, dang it, Tommy! You didn't brief me on that. I don't have the right caption thing up. You're supposed to be doing gaming and simulation
I could
news.
actually do gaming because I got both. So let's do
Okay.
gaming.
Yeah, while you do that,
There's
I'll let
actually
it.
some exciting stuff coming down this fight sim.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so while you're doing that, you'll see the ticker tape change because I'll be editing it while you're talking.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. Quick gaming tips. Gaming news. Gaming tips I don't give anymore because most of mine don't work. The PMDG made a big announcement. Michael Randazzo, who is the head of development for the PMDG 737 series, and also I believe he heads the 777 series. The UFB, they're calling it the Universal Flight UFT, Universal Flight Tablet, is set to release the 30th of this month. This has been spoken about, anticipated, pushed off, forgotten about, and then talked about again since the release of the original PDMG 700 over a year ago. They did not allude in their press release to what's going to be in there, but you are going to be able to do weights and balances and more of the technical aspect of getting your aircraft ready for a flight during your pre-flight. So we'll just have to wait and see. Me personally, little skeptical about it. I've heard it was going to be released, the date's coming and constantly pushing off. So I'm the type of guy, don't tell me about it. Show it to me. A quick on Starfleet. Starfleet? No, the game I did last. Starfield. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Need this.
Uh,
Starfield has also lost a little bit in the popularity polls this week. And it was because of the discussion we had last week, where you're billing it as open map, but it's really not truly open map. You have those borders. And everything else that I looked through, because I'm always looking for new developers, something coming down the line. One of the things that people are starting to rage about is by Rec Simulations, and it's called AccuSeason. I have it, and what it does is it will inject seasonal changes into the sim. And so, like, if I parked up by Justin's house and I just kind of left the Cessna there 24/7 all year long, you'll see the gradual change in the colors of the leaves, and then the trees will gradually get more bare. The grass will turn from a nice lush green to the winter brown, as I call it. It was $20, and the game you can set it. It will update itself as long as your computer has power running to it. It will update and inject it into the sim. So when you boot the sim up, it's ready to go. So that's
Oh,
a
wow.
handy dandy little thing. It just updated. Uh, Next week I have some more updates about some Jets came on, and I'll be looking at some newer games. I'm actually going to dive deep into the development of GTA, maybe send some emails that'll go unanswered. But with that, that's pretty much gaming news update quick.
Oh, okay. Sorry, you still have medical stuff. I don't know why I just queued us back in. And we're out. We're still listening.
Oh, okay. So the medical stuff, real quick, not to scare anyone away. The What I wanted to touch on is we had brought up the statistic, and this was actually a conversation Bill and I had before I put it on our show. Was 95,000 professional EMTs and paramedics leaving the career field. That is still trending. That is still a thing. And not to scare anyone about it, there is still plenty of emergency workers out there covering calls and stuff like that. But I did get some questions a day or so after the show aired. Well, why are they quitting? Why would people quit a job that's seemingly always going to be there? And it will. The main reasons: pay, mandatory overtime, because you just finished an 8-hour shift. You're ready to hand your stuff in, call it a day, go home. And then your supervisor says, yeah, you're mandated for 6. Makes a lot of people unhappy. The lack of better benefits, because everyone's like, oh, you're in healthcare. You must have like these stellar benefits. No, not so much. We have the same benefits everyone else does, and we pay the same price everyone else does. And this one I personally don't agree with. I did not get in the job for this. One of the big reasons that they listed, and this comes from EMS World, which is a magazine that comes out monthly that holds trends in EMS. Lack of appreciation from the public. I always looked at it this way. Every time I was on the truck, I was in the road, I'm standing in a total stranger's living room who needs to trust me with their life literally for a half hour, maybe 40 minutes, depending on traffic. And if I told whoever was driving that day, to light it up going to the hospital, or if I lit it up while I was driving that day. I don't really look for appreciation from the public. We deal with people at not exactly the best times in their lives, even though, um, they called you for a stub toe. In their mind, they have a legitimate emergency. So you kind of bite your tongue until after the call. And then when you and your partner are sitting in the cab of the truck and the doors and the windows are closed, now you're in Las Vegas, and then you just tee off and give your total opinion. But
So is that one of the reasons why they're saying that there's such a high attrition rate is because of the lack of appreciation?
yeah, believe it or not, that's the number 3. And I'm like, well, I grew up in the generation where not everybody gets a trophy. So that's not
Okay,
something I ever looked
so
for or
so what
wanted.
were the can you summarize the reasons again? Because I lost it in the story. So what was the number one reason people are?
Insufficient pay, forced overtime, mandatory overtime,
Mhm,
lack of benefits.
mhm.
And by I say lack, uh, the expense of medical benefits, which again, we're not doing. We're
Okay.
not getting into that with as far as with me. And the and it blew my mind when I read it. Realistically,
Okay,
the lack
so
of
so basically the attrition is lack of pay, lack of benefits, and lack of appreciation.
yep.
I mean, I think that's a fair point. Because and I also think it's a cultural thing too, because a lot of people see EMTs as like sub paramedics, which is not true. They
No,
work
that is true.
alongside.
Entry. So basically, entry level is an EMT, and
Interesting. Okay,
then
so I'm wrong. You got, but the point is the perception is a little bit different. I think also where the appreciation comes as public service, right? I think we're coming into a lot of. I don't know if it's post pandemic or what it is, but I feel like the mindset has come from public service to public servant, if that makes sense. It's
Yeah.
just a kind
oh
of a
yeah, it does.
change of mindset. So,
And
um,
we're also just now starting to see the change in mindset from, oh, there's an ambulance driver, to, okay, this is actually a licensed professional that can actually do
mhm,
stuff.
yeah.
Actually, one of the biggest questions in my career. Everyone always says, "Oh, so everybody must ask you what's the worst thing you ever saw." I'm like, no. Most of the time, I'm asked, "Do you know how to drive the ambulance?" So yeah, about that.
The wee woo
We do
bus.
both. I'm
The
sorry.
Boo Boo Bus.
The
The
boo
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 boo.
bus.
Yeah, the
The
band aid
wee woo
buggy.
bus. All right. Well, that's that's interesting. Um, so what are they doing to counteract the attrition, Tommy? Are there programs out there? Are there like
There are programs out there.
programs?
Last week we had said the volunteers are actually the ones that are spearheading this
Mm-hmm.
by offering to pay for the EMT course, because right now in the United States it'll go anywhere from $650 to upwards of 1,400 for an EMT class. And I've been an instructor since 1990. Who cares? It was a while ago, but it was they're really pushing recruitment by absorbing that cost. And I've
Mm-hmm.
even heard rumor that some of them are paying for the cost of the National Registry exam, because what it used to happen was
Oh, hold
you
on.
know,
So who's paying for it? Are like companies, like
companies and stuff like that. Yeah,
or is it like the privatized
no,
companies that are?
municipal and county run systems, you're
Mhm.
on your dime, and
Okay.
90% of them run an academy, so you're actually getting paid to go,
Oh, okay.
and you get 3 tries. It's a 3 strike system. You get 3 tries at that National Registry exam. If you don't pass, you're out.
Okay. And but so would you say like the largest barrier for someone who's trying to enter the field and like help with the attrition rate would be the cost of training? Is that
Yes,
something that's heavily be like, "Oh, wait, I don't have enough money to do this."
yes,
So
it most
by them
certainly is.
applying or offering some sort of financial aid, it's going to help with the attrition rate.
And the other thing is too, believe we spoke about it again, is a pension system. When I very first started, is 20 and out, regardless of age. So now, because of the attrition rate, it's 25 and 55.
Okay.
So if you got your 25 years in and you're not 55 years old yet, you got a little bit to go.
Okay.
And they have prorated systems and all that, but we'll burn out the rest of the show if I got into that. And to tell you the truth, I'm just not in the mood for that headache. But even cities, New York, Boston, LA, New York City is the biggest, busiest
Mhm.
EMS system in the country.
Doesn't
As
surprise
it stands right now, it's 4,700 911 calls per day
me. Mhm.
just for an ambulance.
Yeah, I mean, there's that makes sense because New York City is, I think, if not one of the most populated cities in the United States. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, their
Oh,
per capita is ridiculous.
yeah.
I moved out of Queens in my early 30s. There was well over 1.1 million people just in that borough.
Wow, that's impressive.
Jeez.
Definitely not the population where I live. That's for sure.
The and along with the National Registry exam, it's kind of interesting how they do it. So they'll give you a layup question. You know, what color is blood, for instance, and
Purple.
and then they will go to the hardest question they have in their inventory. Okay. And that happens throughout the test. They give you an easy one and they give you a hard one, and they kind of walk it back into the middle of where your knowledge is. And they will quiz you based in your knowledge range of what you've actually absorbed. It's kind of like a reactive test now.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
And
That's
it's
something that we can talk a little bit more about, in that's a little more
Yeah.
career corner-ish, if
Yeah.
you will. So, but yeah, okay. And I think Tommy actually might be talking a little bit about that today in career corner. So I don't want to take too much away from him from that.
I
So
will be. I actually got good stuff for that today.
yeah. So, um, with that being said, I don't want to get too out of
Yeah, no.
order here, but with that being said, thanks Tommy for the updates for gaming and medical. Again, double threat today. But we'll move on to Justin with the commercial transportation. I just need to change that to automotive news. But some automotive news with Justin, aka Wise Ass Trucker.
How we doing? All right. So, this is for anyone out there that is looking to start their CDL training. Um, Lamar State College, Port Arthur, Texas, is actively seeking to enter into training contracts with companies around the nation to provide training and examination services. So, what does this mean? Well, the school just received a $4.3 million federal grant and a 20-acre truck driving training center, and they are now able to process 20,000 commercial driver license exams annually. So the community college is in Port Arthur, Texas, which is about 90 miles east of Houston, and they were awarded the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration Workforce Development Grant in February 2021 to create a CDL testing site. The center provides the largest commercial driving training and examination facility in their region, and it does encompass both commercial driver training and commercial driver examination. So they can do both parts of your training. You'll go there, do your class A, class B, dump truck, whatever training, and then they can also issue the state licensing examinations. And now they're looking for students who want to take part in the program. So if you're looking for someplace to do both your CDL training and get your license in one-stop shop, Lamar State College in Port Arthur. Now, a little bit about their program. They have 12 vehicles, including tractor trailers, school and coach buses, and dump trucks, so that students can receive an unrestricted license. The only simulation in the program, 300 hours for a Class A license, is for shifting simulators. So they actually have simulators that you can use to work on shifting a manual transmission for a Class A license, and that program is 300 hours. And the other CDL programs last between 200 and 240 training hours. So this is a really great opportunity, and I'm wondering if we'll see more states sponsor programs to get more drivers trained. And they're also looking for, this program specifically, they're also looking for commercial companies to partner with. So that way, when you're done training, you can enter right into the workforce and then begin training with whatever company you're going to eventually drive for.
So is that kind of like almost like a flow program, right? Is it through a specific company, or are they going to have like job placement? How does that work?
I didn't read much about the job placement,
Hmm.
but they're definitely looking for partnerships with companies
Okay.
to help with the examinations is the big thing, is
Hmm.
they need staff and they need companies to help them get new trainees to the state examinations or state examiners.
Okay. Okay. So if they do that, then it would be like a flow program, right? It'd be like a zero to hero program almost.
Almost, yeah.
Okay. Has there ever been a company in your knowledge that has done something like that? Like where
Yes.
it's like, hey, we're zero to hero, we're gonna get you started, and then you know what, you're gonna flow into these companies or drive for us once you get all your training done.
Yes. So actually, the first, I don't want to dive into it too much because it actually goes with my career corner.
Dang it. I did that
Um,
last week. You guys are doing it this week.
but short answer, yes, and I can go into it later. But yes, that
Okay.
does happen.
Okay, we won't spoil it. Sorry. I just it's a question I have, but I'll write it down so I won't forget it. You got
So
any
yeah,
questions?
no. My big thing on that was just the numbers that they're projecting. They're able to process up to 20,000 new drivers.
How is that possible though? Is that one site that you're talking about?
That's at one site. Yeah,
How many acres of driving land do they have, or
20
land?
acres.
That still doesn't seem. And how many tractor trailers
Let's
did you say?
see, 20. They had 20 vehicles.
So they're gonna put 1,000 people per wait, okay. And what was the time frame for that? Because they said
That's
20.
annually, but
There's
it's
no way.
also being done as a state exam site too.
Oh, so wait. So is the
So it's
20,000?
not just training; it's also an exam site.
Okay, so is the 20,000 including like
It's
people
got
coming for
yes,
exams?
it's including new students coming through and also
Just
state
examinations.
exams. Yes.
Okay, that makes a little more sense because
Interesting.
I
Yeah.
was like 20,000 students a year in 20 trucks.
Trucks.
How is
The
that?
math doesn't math.
On 20 acres.
They're just
So it's one
dump
student per
everybody in there
truck.
per acre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
But
god! And then,
you also have to remember too that there's road training that you have to do. You have to leave.
oh,
You
The
have
yeah.
to leave the yard and experience the world. It's
I, I was
you
gonna say
can't.
they're gonna rip out the bed and the sleeper and put like stadium seating. So there's actually be 20 people in the truck and one seat. It's just you're gonna
So
have 18 behind you.
when I went to CDL school, that's what we had. Our road trucks were sleepers, and they ripped the seats out and put air ride seats in the bunk area.
Oh, that's jump
So
seats.
there's a line of three air ride seats sitting in the back, and the instructor would always sit front passenger.
That's funny. That is so
Yeah.
funny. And pull around
Hey,
like a low boy with bleachers on him just to carry everybody around.
all right,
Everybody pay attention. I'm
contestant
gonna
number
turn this on.
961, your turn.
All right, yeah, 961. Good job. 962. Come here.
That's
So,
great.
But yeah, no, it's great to have something with that much capacity open up. So hopefully, get more people through, more people tested, more people out on the road
Mm-hmm.
and working.
Sweet.
So I do have something.
Uh-oh.
I kind of like that aesthetic. So the numbers are a little large, but I like that aesthetic. So, Justin, in your professional opinion,
The aesthetic. You mean his Dunder Mifflin blanket?
yes, that's
Oh.
it.
I was like,
But
aesthetic means that means the look.
yeah, the look of how the driving school is set up.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll talk about that
I think
after.
it's the physical. Anyways, we'll talk. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Listen, we're running on like 90 minutes sleep, guys. So let's just
The
just
aesthetic
smile
is
and nod
that
at
he's
me,
never
okay?
seen before.
But will this actually help standardizing training for professional driver, or is that
See,
the hope?
I guess that's a no.
right now, each state, when you go for your state license exam, there's kind of a federal set of guidelines that they have to look at, but how each state actually conducts it is different. So,
Yeah.
for instance, when I did my pre-trip portion of my state exam, I didn't even have to open the hood. I just had to tell the state examiner, okay, under the hood section, this is what I'm looking for. In the cab section, this is what I'm looking for. The rear end, and like that around the truck. Whereas, my neighbors to the state of New Hampshire, when you go take your state skills exam, they tell you you're going to want to bring gloves. The state's going to provide a creeper, and you are going to be on your back on a creeper looking at the undercarriage of this truck, touching everything.
Okay, can you
I'm
clarify?
sorry, I saw
Creeper
Bill's
is
face.
So a creeper
is the
is
thing that you roll like what the mechanics lay on.
it's what the mechanics.
I thought you took
lay on
the
your
little
back and
creepy guy and we're just
roll
dragging him
around
underneath
and
the truck. So
but yeah, New Hampshire state exam, they have you do like a full on federal level inspection, checking everything. Whereas
So
I
doing
just
it
walked
like you're
around and said,
supposed
yeah,
to
this
do
is
it.
what I check under here, and I walked away.
So the school's not really going to standardize anything because it varies per state.
Yeah.
Okay.
Same thing with the National Register.
Yeah, it
Like I am
sounds
my career.
everything,
Same thing.
everything. It's kind of like a flight school. A flight school, even though it's technically federally regulated, you're going to get a different experience depending on which flight school you go to. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
So
thanks,
that's
Justin.
gonna bring us to jargon in a jiffy.
My favorite segment of this entire show. And why it's my favorite is just because it's a learning thing. It's funny to see each other try to, because you're talking about three, and if I do say so myself, three very intelligent people sitting in this video podcast trying to figure out these words.
Yeah.
Very competitive people, mind you, too. So like we want to figure this out. So anyways, Justin.
Yeah, So today's word for trucking jargon is pigtail.
Okay. Use it in a sentence.
Um,
You can't just say pigtail and then
well, no, I know,
like,
because I've been going over how I was going to present this so that way. Okay.
is it? Hold on, time out. Is it gonna be PG?
Yes.
Do I need to start bleeping stuff? Okay, just want to make sure.
Yes. There was something wrong with my pigtail, so I had to get that replaced before I could leave on my trip.
Oh, I think I know what it is. I think maybe Tommy. Before I start shouting out answers, I learned
Okay,
this.
so what comes to my mind first
Mm-hmm.
is um was not what I thought it was because I got a different definition for pigtail. But is that the portion of wheels that go between dual trailers?
Nope. I would say, is it the airlines, the lines that are coming out of the back of the truck that you hook up to your trailer,
You're
like
close.
pneumatic brake lines?
You're close.
Because all I'm thinking of, I don't know what the
Same.
actual lines are, but they're the ones that they're coiled, right?
Yep. So the pigtail specifically is the electrical connection.
Yeah, I don't know but I know it's those cords in the
Oh,
back because you always see, yeah.
Because many trucks they're coiled, so that
Hmm.
way they retract themselves. But yeah, it's the actual electrical connection. The other two are called glide hands, but or airlines. But yeah,
So would you
it's
refer to the airlines also as pigtails because they're also
nope.
coiled, or is
No,
it so
it's
so it's
just the electrical connection.
and the
If you
electrical is
walk
for
to a
what though?
tech, if you
Is it
walk
for
up to a
guys?
mechanic and say, I'm not getting lights to my trailer, or
Hmm.
I think my pigtail's bad, they're gonna replace your electrical line.
Okay, and that's for the trailer lights? Is that what it's for? Is to
Yes.
connect all
Yep.
your? Oh, okay.
Yep.
Haha. Haha.
see, I should have known that because when we would plug our ambulances in at night to the block warmers,
Yep.
it was called a pigtail. And you would disconnect your pigtail from the electrical lines in the station and throw it in the driver's door so you never lost it.
And so it's called pigtail because of the circular, right?
Because it's coiled. Yeah.
I was thinking of something else when you first started, and then you said it in the sentence, and I was like, I think I know what this is. Tommy, what were
Um,
you talking about in between the trailer?
yeah, when you're running doubles, you have the set of wheels that's between the
Oh,
doubles right there.
I gotcha. That was a good guess too. I didn't know what you were talking
Yeah.
about originally, but that actually was really.
I knew what he was talking about, and that no, that's the dolly.
Ah, there we go.
Ah, okay.
There
Well, there
we
you
go.
go. You can't use that in a jargon in a jiffy in the
Well, he
You
future.
also
heard of
can't
dolly
use.
parton, and when you pull them apart, they're dolly apartin.
Oh my god, that's a good one. Well, and you also can't use creeper anymore either because
I know.
as soon as you
I'm
said
like,
it, I was like, I think I know what he's talking about, but now he can't use that for jargon and Jiffy because I'm
Your
never.
face was actually classic because if Justin had paused for a quick second, I would have been like, "No, Bill, the other one, not that one."
Yeah, I was like, did you drag like the town creeper underneath the truck? That's kind of cruel. I was just so when you said it, I was like, is he just gonna keep going without explaining what that is? Because I don't know what that is.
Oh, God,
Uh,
this is hysterical.
all right, Tommy, let's see what you got.
Okay, so
You can
this
something
week
this
my
morning.
jargon is bull rail. So part of my job
Hmm.
after start a shift is to walk and inspect the bull rail.
Immediately, what comes to mind is like Justin's ram bars on ATS, but that's not that what it makes
those are
sense
bull
of.
bars.
Bull bar. Oh, I see. That would have made sense on an ambulance, though. I hope not, unless it's in a zombie apocalypse or something. Um, bull rail is to inspect the bull rail. Is it on the truck, Tommy?
No, it's not on a truck.
It's not on the truck.
It's actually this is a term from my current industry.
Oh, okay. Man, you're throwing curveballs left and right. You went news with EMT stuff, and then this one's your current career, throwing me off. Um, it's where you hit y'all's horses out there in Pennsylvania when you go to work.
It should be, but no.
No, I honestly have
No.
no idea. Justin, do you got? I have no idea what a bull rail
Is
is.
it does it have to do with like the product conveyor system?
In some warehouses, yes.
Okay.
It doesn't really help. I have no idea.
No.
I'm stumped.
Yeah,
Tom,
I've
you're
got
stumped.
nothing.
Tommy.
Okay, so the bull rail is a either metal or they're replacing it with what's called a safe, which is very high impact, heavy duty composite plastic that goes around the edge of where the order pickers and the battery operated machinery works, and it's basically what gives them their drive lanes and keeps them from losing control and hitting people as they're walking through the warehouse.
They're bumpers.
Big bumpers. Yeah.
They're bumpers for they're bumper car for autonomous
Guardrails.
guardrails.
Yeah. Essentially what we call it a bull rail.
So would Justin, would a guardrail on the road be called a bull rail? Is that the same? Is it the same thing, or is that like a?
Um,
I don't think so, right? Like that wouldn't a
no,
guardrail
I've
is a
never heard it
guardrail,
called that.
huh?
We could do that now. We have our own platform and we can do what we want.
Yeah, I mean,
We can
So,
start a
we're
new
starting
trend.
a trend right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Guardrails
did
and bull rails.
bull rails. Did you?
Yep.
So Tommy, did you? Where did that term come from? Is it just like management came in and said we're putting in bull rails, or
If I heard the story correctly, one of the very first warehouses that my employer had built
Mhm.
22, 25 years ago, whatever it was, the term was
Processed cattle.
coined by what?
I
It
said
was coined by
processed
the
cattle.
builder of the warehouse, by the construction
okay.
company.
Interesting. Yeah, I was saying because I've never heard of that before. So there you go, Tommy. There's one stump for the morning. Nice. All right. So now mine, I don't know. Tommy actually may not get this one. I tried to specifically find one to stump Tommy because Tommy's good at my words because we sim together. So, my word is slick. So the Boeing 737 compared to the Embraer 145 is a very slick airplane. It makes descent planning and configuration planning extremely important. Can you tell I rehearsed that in the mirror a couple times?
Yeah.
All right. Who wants to go first? Slick. The word is slick. Justin?
Yeah, Justin.
Does it
How is
mean like aerodynamically efficient?
Kind of. You're in the ballpark. And in the ballpark, you're like in the left field nosebleeds, but you're there.
So so what you're saying is I need binoculars to see the picture.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay.
You're there.
That's as far.
Tommy?
You see, I was thinking right along what Justin was doing, something to do with the aerodynamics of the aircraft.
Can you get a little more specific? Aerodynamics is there. So aerodynamics is the huge subject that generally deals with aircraft in general. So you're there. I just need you guys to be a little more specific. What about the aerodynamics?
There's not a lot of drag.
Yeah, there's less drag, or it cuts through the air easier while in flight.
Kind of. You guys are walking the correct direction. So you're not walking towards home plate, like you're not going down the roads. You're kind of walking through your row around.
Are we like walking towards the bullpen now?
Not really. You're not going towards home plate. You're walking around the outfield. So slick is it is aerodynamic. So a slick or slippery airplane is an airplane that is hard to slow down once it starts descending because of its wing configuration. So like the Embraer 145, even though it's technically a swept wing aircraft, is a pretty straight wing compared to most airline type aircraft. So that thing could stop on a dime. Like LaGuardia would love us because we'd come in and they say, hey, can you do 250 the marker? Yeah, we could. We do 250 the marker. Or they'd ask us to slam on the brakes and go 180. And all we had to do was go gear down, flaps 9, and speed brakes, and that thing would stop. And that's because there was so much drag presented because of the wing was being so straight. Whereas the 737, the 175, and the CRJ 700, the ones you can see behind me here, the wing were swept a little bit more, and so it made it a slicker aircraft because it was harder to slow down once you started coming downhill. So with those airplanes, like the Boeing 737, you have to be extremely cognizant of your descent planning. So you have to you have to plan everything out to be like, well, I know I'm going to be asked to slow to like 210 here, but I need to be at this altitude for the approach. So I'll use the extra airspeed, like 250 knots, to get us down quicker and level before the point, then level, then slow down, then configure, and then so on and so forth. On the 145, you had descent planning, but realistically, that thing could slow down like that. So we didn't really have to worry about it as much as the other airplanes I flew. So slick is meaning slippery, so hard to slow down.
Nice. You got me good on that
Gotcha.
one.
Yeah. See, like I
Got me
said,
good on that one.
you guys were close. Like you walked into the ballpark and like, hey, here we
We're
are.
here.
Be like, oh wait, there's nobody in front of us. We can go find better seats. But rather than walking down towards the plate, you guys were walking all the way around to the to plate side or first base line. But anyways, so yeah, that's jargon in a jiffy. That was a good one this morning. Tommy stumped us. And honestly, Justin would have stumped me too, except I was trying to think on. I was thinking pigtails like ponytails, and then you mentioned uh, that it was broken and some like wires, and I always remember as a kid seeing those connected from a trailer to a tractor trailer, and I always wondered what those were as a kid. So there we go. All right, and
We're
that should.
definitely continuing our educational trend.
I'm not gonna lie. I mean, we have good segments, but jargon and jiffy is my favorite so far. I absolutely love jargon and jiffy because, like I said,
So
you
do I.
got three very intelligent, very competitive hosts trying to figure out each other's word. And the key things it is more challenging than most people probably think because Tommy flight sims, so he has a little bit of understanding of what I do. Um, Tommy and Justin both have experience in the EMT world, right? And then we play ATS together, American Truck Simulator. So Justin teaches us a lot of things. So
Yeah,
we
as we're
kind of
playing,
have
yeah.
common experience in there. But also on top of that, Justin being working for a grocery store brand and working a lot with warehouses has a little bit of understanding of what Tommy does with his current job. So you're talking about trying to stump three people who know of each other and what we do and what we do as a career. It's super challenging. It is
See,
super challenging.
and ATS has been more difficult since we started doing this now for me because I can't go on my 15-minute side of the road dissertation.
I I need to take notes because when I hear a word and you mention it, I'm like, okay, let me write that down because that might be on jargon in a jiffy. That's the competitive
That's
side.
going to
I
be on the
wasn't kidding.
quiz.
I wasn't
Oh,
kidding.
oh, yeah.
Like we're all competitive and we want to make sure that we know what this is. So, all right, well that'll lead us into our next segment, which is going to be career corner. Now, if you guys remember, last week we talked about this used to be comment corner, where we talked about the trolls and tribulations of being content creators. But then we realized we don't want to give those trolls a platform. We want to use this time more productively, so we changed it to career corner, where we get to talk about our individual careers and how to get started, and actually the building blocks. So last week we talked about how to get started in our careers. This week we're going to be talking about the first steps that you can expect in our individual careers. And to start with that, we're going to have Tommy talking about the first week in EMT school.
So now that the scary news was out of the way, the first week of EMT school, um, a lot happens. It's administrative, and when they follow suit, it's all medical legal. And this is just straight memorization. You learn all your different terms. Your duty to act, the standard of care, the um, malfeasance, malpractice, the different insurances and stuff like that. So the first week, you could expect to read about 3 chapters from front to back and then answer a quiz. You also start getting into your assessment. So, like, how do you examine people? Because they just don't, there's got to be some sort of standardization. They just don't give you all this information and then stick you out without teaching you any sort of practical skill. So the skills themselves are actually slowly introduced to you that entire first week. And most instructors, myself included, when I was lecturing on medical legal, we wanted to knock that out in 2 days because there's nothing we could do to make that exciting or sometimes even palatable because we're literally just reading and quoting things off of a PowerPoint. And even though I tried doing funny things with bullet points, it just never seemed to work out. It's just very dry material. Those of you that are watching that have done anything in like the hazmat field know exactly what I mean.
Oh,
Um, you'll see things start to pick up at the end of the first week when we actually start breaking the candidates into groups, depending on how large the class is. Like if I have a group of 20, I would make 4 groups of 5 and start giving them what we call the skill sheets. And these are the actual sheets with the steps that teach them how to do skills. So it's everything from a medical or a trauma patient assessment, which is the actual physical exam, a history taking, a history of present illness taking, how to stop bleeding, how to apply a tourniquet. Anything that we do on an ambulance is in this little packet. We actually call it the Skills Bible. And again, straight memorization, but these are things you actually have to practice. Like I personally have told people, like, well, you need to practice your medical assessment. So go home, practice on the pillow, the dog, your kids, your husband, your wife, your significant other, your partner. Don't care what you call them. Go home, practice. Because next week we're going to start taking real blood pressures on one another. And that's actually pretty funny to see that start, because I even did it when the very first time that I put a blood pressure cuff on someone, I put it on upside down. Even though there's a little thing on the bottom which says artery here, I totally disregarded that and put it on. But that first week, but that in doc week is just a lot of reading and it's a lot of discovery. And if you're going to quit the class, that's the week that's going to do it, because naturally you get an overlay of what the week will be like and what's expected of you and where to go and what we're going to do and how we're going to teach you things and where you're going to do clinicals and stuff like that. But that's pretty much the week in a
Well,
quick
that's good.
couple of minutes.
Hopefully, if people are watching this, they won't have to quit, right? Because thanks to Tommy, they're going to know what's coming,
Yeah,
right? I think
they're
that's
gonna.
always the biggest thing is that first week of. It's the same thing with the airlines. It's like drinking from a fire hose. And if someone didn't tell me that I was going to be drinking from a fire hose, it would have been extremely overwhelming. So hopefully, with Tommy's summarization of the first week, that'll help people prepare a little bit better for their first week of EMT school.
And if someone really is interested, I promise you, because I've been a state certified instructor in New York, Florida, and Pennsylvania. So you're going to get the real deal. You will get the good, bad, and the ugly, and it is not meant to deter you. But I'm the type of person, just like you, Bill. I want to know exactly what it is I'm walking into so I can mentally prepare myself.
Okay, that's
So
fair.
it might sound scary, but it's actually not. It's just I
You like
would.
scaring. It is Halloween time, so maybe it's just because it's spooky season. But like
Yeah, we'll
last
see
week,
how
we were
this
talking
fares
about
around
hiding
Thanksgiving.
behind a diesel block. So let's not scare
Yeah,
much.
those were not fun times in my career.
Yeah, he's trying to get people interested in EMT, being an EMT, and he's talking about diving behind a bulletproof um, diesel
And
block. So,
yeah,
And unfortunately, the world we live in.
oh my god! All right, and with that high note, there, Justin, you want to talk about the next step for CDL grads?
yeah. So now that um, hypothetical, hypothetically, you've gone through CDL school, you've passed CDL school, and you've gone through and passed your state exam. Um, Now what do you do? So my hope is that when you were ending, when you were near the end of your CDL school experience and you already had your test date from the state, you would have been applying to companies. But what does that process look like? So for new, and this is just for new drivers, um, when you get hired, you're going to have to go do a DOT medical exam. And this is every job that you will ever have in trucking, even if you had one yesterday, new company is going to want you to have a fresh DOT medical exam from one of their approved facilities. You will have to provide, as a new driver, 5 years of employment history. And they will also ask you for release of your motor vehicle records because, of course, you're going to be driving. They want to make sure that you don't have flagrant DUIs or operating to endangers or 38 speeding citations. Your big moving violations. If you got a parking ticket in Portland, Maine 3 years ago, they don't care about that. Seatbelt violations, they will look at, because federally regulated commercial drivers are required to wear your seatbelt. And your hiring process, why I said hopefully you were applying while you were still at CDL school, some of these companies can take up to a month to do all of the vetting before they send you an offer of employment. And while you're in CDL school, they can actually issue a conditional offer of employment saying, as long as you pass and you get your CDL test, you have a job with us when you get done. Now, I tried to skip around it earlier. Bill had asked if there was like a flow program with some of these companies, like there are airlines. And actually, there are several companies that actually have their own driving academy. And if you go through their academy and sign a contract with them stating, yes, I will stay with this company for 2 years, the costs of my training and my licensing will be covered by the company. CR England does it. Swift has the Swift Driving Academy. All jokes aside, if you don't mind being heckled because you drive for Swift, it might be a decent option for those that, can't see putting up the, $5,000, $7,500 it takes to go through like a community college or a technical school or things of that nature. So apply early in your training. It could take up to a month for them to process all your information. Make sure that you have a clean driving record, and also make sure that your urine test will be clean, because that will be an automatic disqualifier. Even if you live in a state where it's legal, it's still federally regulated by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So that's all I have.
That was a little intense note there to leave it in. Make sure your urine's clean.
When I got to my first company, we had a class of 50 or 60 people, and by day 2, a third of them were already gone.
Okay, remember, positive. We're trying to keep positivity.
I'm a realist.
Their careers. No, well, there's a realist, and there's scaring daylights out of everybody we're trying to encourage. Good God. Oh my God. It's like Tommy was talking about diving behind a diesel block last month. You're just like, don't fail your urinary drug test. And back to you, Bill.
But it's something that you have to keep in mind.
Yeah, but like, okay, you just mentioned, God. Okay, so, but that's good though. I mean, that's a good thing that they do have to be aware of is the process, because like anything, like we're talking about with EMT school and stuff like that, it's good to know what to expect, and rather than walk in and go, you want me to put what in a cup? Like it's good to know that that's something that you're going to be required to do, because a lot of people don't understand the hoops that you have to jump through to get certified to be able to do that.
And one of the things I can say too is keep in touch with the human resources department or the recruiting department of whatever company you're trying to get with. That's going to show them interest. Hey, I'm not just throwing, hoping for the best here. Like, I'm actually interested in this position. And B, it's going to kind of keep you updated as well. Like, okay, where are we in the process? Oh, okay, well, I'm missing this part of my paperwork. Let me go fix that, so that way I'm not delaying this any more than I have to.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Justin. That was the next step in to become a commercial or professional driver like Justin. And I am going to be talking about the first, well, technically it would be the second step to becoming a professional pilot. Remember last episode I mentioned you don't have to be an airline pilot. That's just what I do. There's a lot of different career fields that we can have with professional piloting. So the next step after you've taken that discovery flight, you've gone to the flight school, you've landed, you said, you know what, this is what I want to do. The next step you need to do is first talk to that same instructor that took you up about getting your private pilot license. It's also known as the PPL in the United States. It's the first license you need to get to move towards being an airline or a professional pilot. Private pilot basically just means you're able to fly an airplane, single engine airplane by yourself without any sort of compensation. So you can't get paid. But if you and your friend want to go fly up somewhere for lunch and you guys want to split the cost of operating the airplane right down the middle, that's completely legal. But that person can't buy you a $250 hamburger in order to have you fly them up there for something. There's also a little regulation stuff you'll learn about that when we get there a little bit, but it's just the basic. So I know the big thing that everybody's going to ask is going to be cost. So the average in 2023, the average cost of a private pilot's license is from $9,000 to $15,000, depending on where you go. $15,000 is probably leaning more towards your professional Part 141 schools or university programs. $9,000 might be a Part 61 mom and pop. It also may vary depending on state because fuel prices, which play a huge factor, and instructor rates do vary. But for your private pilot, the first lesson or the first section of your training is most likely to be what's called pre-solo, where you're getting introduced into the basic flight maneuvers of the airplane, and most importantly, taking off and landing, because that's what you're going to be doing on your solo. Now, you can start flight training as early as you want in an airplane, but you have to be at least I believe it's 15 to solo and 16. No, I'm sorry, I got that backwards. You have to be 16 to solo, 17 to get your actual private pilot's license. So at the age of 16, you could solo. So that's basically after the first phase, you've proven that you can safely operate the aircraft basically by yourself. The instructor is going to step out and let you do a couple of landings by yourself, and then you move on to what's called the cross-country phase. So you go outside of your training area and you start going to airports other than your home airport, usually more than 50 nautical miles away, and get experience with navigation, orientation, pilotage, and dead reckoning and stuff like that. It's all about the navigation skills. You learn how to do cross countries. Then once you're done with that, generally you start doing a couple solo cross countries for your private pilot. Then you'll get back with the instructor. You'll do, I think it's 3 hours of nighttime flying, including 10 landings at night. And I believe there has to be a diversion or a cross country in there. It's been a while since I've looked at the Part 61 regs for private pilot, but eventually you'll get to the point where you're doing your check ride. And that, as far as I'm aware, for Part 61, so this is non-university, just Part 61 flight school, is a minimum of 40 flight hours. So 40 flight hours, and you have to be 17 years old in order to get your private pilot's license. And that's pretty much it. That's going to be your first step. That's going to be your first license. Generally, depending on how often you fly, I've seen people get their private pilot's license in like a year. I've also seen people get it in like a month. The only thing I would recommend is definitely flying at least 3 times a week for retention. I know money can play a factor into that, but at least 3 times. Otherwise, if you're only doing once a week, you're not going to retain any information that they're giving you, and it's going to be prolong your training at that level. So especially if you're trying to become a professional pilot. And you guys have just done your discovery flights, right?
I haven't even done that, so.
Oh, okay.
I've done it.
Oh, you have? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
That's right. We talked about it last week, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, and I'm gonna just look this up real quick while I have it in front of me, just to make sure. Like I said, it's been a hot second since I've done PPL training and or trained PPLs. I trained 2 or 3 PPLs in my day. And I want to double check and make sure that I believe the age is 16 to solo. It's 17 years to actually get your license. So you can start as early as you want, but you just got to keep in mind, in order to solo, you have to be 16. And at the age of 17 is when you can actually get your license. And I'll go over the age and stuff as the different licenses progress through this segment. But that's just something to kind of keep in mind. So don't get started too early. But if you really want to start super, super early, you can be a glider pilot at the age of 16. You can solo at 15. That's what I did first. So, fun fact.
That's got to be fun.
Oh, it's a blast. The reason I did it was because it was funny because I didn't have the time. I was involved with a lot of stuff in high school, and also the money. Right, it's $9,000 to $15,000 is a lot of money. So my parents were like, "Well, we don't have the time. Probably don't have the money right now to send you to normal like powered flight school, airplane single engine land. But we have a friend who's a science teacher, a retired science teacher that they worked with, that is part of the El Paso Soaring Society, and he does glider stuff. So why don't you do that? It's cheaper." And I was like, "No, I don't want to do that. That's stupid. Who wants to fly gliders?" And then I went out there and took my discovery flight with them and absolutely loved it. And it was hands down the best decision I should say my parents made, because I didn't want to do it at first, but that we made, because it was a blast. There's something so unique, and it talked about stick and rudder skills. That's how you develop them, is just figuring out how to fly, just using Mother Nature and yourself. The longest glider flight I had was 3.5 hours. I released at
Oh,
2,000 feet AGL, and El Paso's 4,000 feet. So I didn't go above 10,000 feet because of the oxygen requirements. But I stayed up. It was this super strong thermal that I stayed up for 3.5 hours. And the only reason I came down that day is because I had to go to the bathroom. After about 3.5 hours, I'm like, we carried water with us because it's the desert. It was summertime. And I was chugging down water while I was doing it. And it was finally like, you know what? I need to go to the bathroom. I need to start descending. And even when I descended, I pushed the nose down, full spoilers. I was still getting picked up in that thermal tail first. So I had to pick up enough airspeed to like actually bust through the side of the thermal, so that way could actually descend back down to the field.
That's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, it's one of the most exhilarating things that I've ever done. I would highly recommend it if you guys have a gliding club near you to try that out. Because it's great. I've never regretted it ever since, and I've in fact thanked my parents because they technically made that decision for me. But it was a great decision nonetheless. So, all right. With that, we will now transition. I was gonna say Q&A. There's not really any Q&A up there. I just want to say hello to Steph in our TikTok live, and our wonderful moderator Snowy, who's a moderator for all three of us, I believe. Right? Is he a moderator on your Twitch channel, Justin?
Not yet. I need to add him.
Yeah, not yet. But Snowy is also our technical advisor, really good with technical feedback as well. So welcome. Dell was in our chat over here, and Tommy, he wants to know if you can share. Here, let me pop this up real quick. I don't know why that doesn't show up, because it's like sitting right here. Um, he wants to know if the craziest or weirdest call that you've ever got that you can share. That's relatively PG as an EMT.
the one that pops out
Mm-hmm.
real quick is it's what we call the street job, where you're not going into someone's house. It's just a cross street location. So like,
Oh, okay.
First Street and Second Avenue on the corner.
Mm-hmm.
I had a guy and I was driving that day. So pull over, and naturally I'm on the wrong side of the road. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm at the sidewalk, and my partner's looking across the cab at, and this certain person tried for a good 15 minutes to convince us that he had mange. The skin
What?
condition that dogs get. Yeah.
Yeah. What?
Oh yeah. He was going it, and he just tried, and it was right where fall was transitioning to the early winter.
Okay.
So, and he said, I got mange and I got this because me and my dog, and he's just going, I'm like, dude, there's no way possible you got mange. Like, it
There's
just don't happen to humans.
it's
So
not.
finally, no, it's not. Finally, I just looked at him, and I was like, listen, bud, I'm going to ask you one question. I just wanted one truthful answer from you, and we'll take care of you. And he goes, okay, what do you want to know? I was like, are you cold? And he looks at me and he goes, yeah. I was like, all right, so you don't have any place to live, right? And he goes, no. You could have just told me that.
Yeah.
Get in the back of the truck. Go. And I believe I said it. Go around the back of the truck to the emergency entrance. And my partner started laughing. And we took him to the hospital, and I think we wrote him up as hypothermic. Even
Okay.
though like it truly wasn't, because there's a whole politic in that.
Yeah.
But I mean,
So was he saying he had mange because he was cold, or he just needed somewhere warm to go
yeah, that was exactly it. He was trying to come up with some excuse to give us to take him to the hospital.
to stay warm, right?
Yeah,
Because he had no place to
basically
go.
to stay warm and get something to eat.
Yeah, that
And
makes
you
sense.
know what I'm saying?
He could have come up with something
It's
better than mange, though. But
oh yeah, he definitely could have.
I mean,
But I mean, it was entertaining. But
that
it's
is.
like, just dude, mange really couldn't.
I could imagine Tommy just standing there going, "Did you say mange? Like, are you
Well, the
serious?"
funny part was I had a dog at the time. At the time, I had a pit bull,
Mm-hmm.
and she was an awesome dog, like very intelligent, very friendly.
Mm-hmm.
I went out of my way to socialize her as a pup,
Mm-hmm.
and like she had flea bite dermatitis, so she got bit by one flea, like her paws would swell,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So I was dealing with my dog that would have a skin condition if I allowed it to happen.
Okay. So
Like if I got lax.
so you knew he didn't have mage.
Yeah, dude, you ain't got mage. And then, like, he was like rolling up the 17 layers of clothes that he had on, and the newspaper that he was using as jacket insulation was
That's not
falling down. Like,
mange, my friend. That's eczema.
That's excellent. Yeah.
right? You got psoriasis, dude. Totally different animal.
Totally completely different. That is a weird one. So Dell, I hope that satisfied
is-
your question there. For the weirdest story. That tops any weird ones that I have, that's for sure.
No,
But that's
nobody boarding the airplane telling you they have mange.
no. I've had a guy come up, just a random guy. I can't remember if it's with my current company or my last one, where he came up and was like, "Hey, I'm in seat blah blah blah. If you need anything," and walks away. And I remember turning to my first officer, going. So it must have been when I was at Envoy. It turned to my first officer. It was Atlanta. That's what it was. And looking at my first officer, going, "Did he say he was a pilot?" He goes, "No." I said, "Did he have a?" And I asked my flight. I'm like, "Did he have a crew badge?" No. So this random guy, not a pilot, not just random Joe Schmo on an airplane, runs up to the cockpit. And by the way, I was I told my flight attendant, I'm like, if they don't have a flight deck lanyard or they don't work for us, don't let them on a cockpit unless they ask you to see the cockpit. Because apparently he came in, just kind of made that left turn without checking in anybody.
I bet he stayed at a Holiday Inn Express the night before.
That was the running joke for the rest of the trip. Yeah. But yeah, he was like, "If you need anything, I'm in seat blah blah." And I'm like, so I had someone who's just not a pilot, not a nobody, that just a random passenger come up and say, "If you need anything, I'm in seat such and such," and walk away. Because usually I've had the private pilots come up. I have that said I'm a private pilot, which is fine, because ultimately a pilot is better than anything if anything goes wrong in the flight deck. But I've had the private pilots come up. I've had student pilots come up. The student pilots were more of, "Hey, I'm a student pilot. Can I see the cockpit?" type of deal. The one private pilot I had was legit serious. Like, "I got you, man." I'm like, "Yeah, if we need you to fly this, 35-ton airplane, we'll give you a call." You know, but yeah, that one guy in Atlanta that was just like, "If you need anything," he runs off. It's like, I didn't see a crew badge. I didn't see a license. Like, is he even a pilot? And even the flight attendant, all of us were like, the three of us were staring at her like, what just happened? That's probably my weirdest thing that's happened. So, all right. Well, the spooky weirdness actually transitions us great into our topic for this week. I'm actually super excited about this because one big thing that we talked about when we were having this talk show is that our discussion topics were weren't necessarily supposed to be about our careers. It was just supposed to be. It could be like. It could just be like the current trending thing, or just any sort of random topic we could come up with. We even have something in our Discord, which if you're not part of our Discord, feel free to check it out. It's in all three of our links in our bios. There's a section on there where you can actually go and put a topic request in our Discord. And if it's something that's appropriate and entertaining, we may talk about it. So feel free to go check that out. But this week, I'm super excited about this because we're talking about the scariest movies we have ever seen. And I've warned Tommy and I've warned Justin. I am kind of a cinema geek. Well, I don't know what the top word is.
We'll pretend it's a word, yeah.
That's a word.
Yes, it's a word now.
Cine geek. That's the new one.
I'll put it in the book.
One of the best. There we go.
Send that to Webster's, please.
Yep, please. I want it into the dictionary next week. Thank you, Tommy. But I took one of my favorite classes. It was an elective in college I took, was the history of narrative film. And we literally started off with Buster Keaton's Sherlock Holmes Jr.'s. And I think we went all the way through the different eras of cinema and watched all the way. I think we ended it with The Artist from 2012 with John Goodman as a full circle from original silent film to modern silent film. And we just dove into some of the greatest films of all time. So I warned them that this is going to get pretty good. So let's see. Justin, why don't you start? You were telling me, we were talking a little bit pre-show.
Yeah. So when it comes to horror, the slasher films, the gore, things like that, like they don't affect me. It doesn't bother me. I can sit here and watch, an ER trauma show and eat a sandwich. That no effect on me. For me, it is the psychological thrillers, the ones that will build suspense, they get in your head. And one of my my favorites recently was A Quiet Place with
Ooh.
John Krasinski and
Yep.
Emily Blunt, and they're like 4 speaking lines throughout the entire movie, but it builds suspense.
So is it? So is the acting is too, because John Krasinski and
Yeah,
Emily. What's her name?
Emily
Uh,
Blunt.
Emily Blunt are great actors.
Yes.
So I think that plays into it as well.
Yeah. But along the lines of psychological thrillers, and you can laugh at me if you want, I don't care. The movies that I think have had the biggest effect are the Paranormal Activities, where it's, that seemingly home movie shot, not a whole lot of, refinement as far
Yeah.
as high class cinema, but it's constantly getting into your head, and you're like, well, what's there? What's there? What's there?
Yeah. Well, and I personally don't like the handheld VHS ones. Like, what was it? Cloverfield? Is Cloverfield one of the
Cloverfield
originals?
was one of them, and the one that started it all was
The Blair Witch.
the Blair Witch.
Which I'm sorry, that movement, and because there's ways you can simulate that movement without actually doing it. Me personally, Blair Witch and Cloverfield, I got motion sick watching those films because it was just like, oh, finally something of interest. Never mind, let's just like shake the camera so bad I can't see what's going on. But that's just me personally.
Yeah.
That's I just don't like that type of cinematography. So
Neither do I.
yeah,
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of either one of those two.
yeah. Tommy, what was what? I'm sorry, Justin. Before
No.
so
Just Paranormal Activities, kind of the one that stands out in my mind.
okay. And what was the name of the one you said again for your scariest movie? The
Quiet.
title? A Quiet Place. That's right. Okay.
Quiet
Sorry, I was
Place.
taking notes. So I can keep track. That is a good one. That is a good one. There's a Quiet Place too now, I think.
Yeah,
There's-
that was really good. And I think there might be another one coming out. I'll have to look into it, but it's called A Quiet Place Day One.
Yeah, and I think there's spin-offs or similar movies of the same type now that are talking about kind of the similar aspect of being quiet.
Yeah.
And yeah, so very little dialogue, but so they have to rely on the storyline and the acting to be able to portray the what's it called, the thrill of it. Like my favorite part is when John Krasinski turns around, and I can't remember if it's the daughter or the son that's making noise, and he's just like, because you can hear the
Yeah.
creatures coming, and I remember seeing that. And I was on the edge of my seat, and I was like, "Kid, shut up, shut up!" And like John, and just the
Oh,
look in his eyes
When
are
he
like,
when they're walking home and he's playing
"Yep,
with the little space shuttle,
yep," and he turns around, he's just like, "Shh," and oh my god, yeah,
and you
that
just
part was
see
so
the
intense.
fear in his face. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just trying to like, because oh my god, that scene just is so intense. I'm not gonna get into the analytics of it, but just well done by John Krasinski. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
just yeah, I could see why that is one of your top. I like that. All right, Tommy, talk to us.
So me personally, it's an oldie but a goodie.
Exorcist. Did I guess it right?
Close. The
Oh,
Amityville Horror.
oh, that is a
Um,
classic.
I actually read that book too because
I would say the
and
book is a little bit, in my opinion, the book's a little bit better than the movie.
it is, and I don't know why, but there was just something about that film because I'm like Justin. I would rather the psychological thriller than the actual, I'm gonna run around the forest with a machete and hack everything from ant hills to people that come through here. And do you ever notice all those people always have that same idea? Oh, our
Yeah.
car's broken down, but let's walk 30 yards into the woods and see what
Oh
happens.
my god, I'll talk
Right?
about that in a second. Yeah, I hate those films.
And but I grew up literally like 30 minutes from the actual house.
I would say, isn't the actual house in Pennsylvania?
No, it's in Long Island, New York.
Is
Once
it really? Oh, I thought
Oh
it was
yeah.
Pennsylvania.
And when all that the original events that happened, and then and I'm talking about the actual Amityville Horror, not one of the 37 sequels that came out after that. But yeah, it would just freak me out because it's gotten to the point that house, the township that it's in, changed the address.
Yeah, because
People
everybody's
had
going. Yeah,
Oh yeah, because it was such a huge tourist attraction
yeah.
after that original. people who lived there couldn't get home from work.
Yeah,
There would literally be hundreds of people around that house.
it's like Walter White's house in Albuquerque.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh yeah,
they had to put
yep.
up a fence to stop people
Yep.
from throwing pizza on the
Pizza's
roof.
on top of the roof. Yeah, exactly.
That is great. But yeah, that's what did it for me. And that one episode where all the flies are on the window.
Mm-hmm.
Episode, the one scene.
Yeah, I was
where,
like, episode. Are we talking about
where the
American
flies
Horror
are on the
Story
window.
now?
For whatever reason that just freaked me out.
Yeah, there's
You know,
yeah.
and
That is that's a classic thriller, like a throwback classic thriller. So,
Good
you guys ready
choice.
for mine? The build up, the ultimate psychological thriller of all time.
Lion King. No.
Saw 3. No, wait, what? Did you say Lion King? Long live the king. No, that's just emotionally traumatizing. I've realized
It
that
is.
now. I was talking about that with my wife the other day. It's like, do we want to show our kids? Because like, I mean, it's a good movie, but God, that was dark. You know. Anyways, no, I saw 3. I want to play a game. No, my favorite of all time, is Woman in Black, The Woman in Black. So, I know I talked about this with Brother Moose. I'm originally a theater person, so I was a stage manager, did tech, speech and debate. I did acting and all sorts of stuff. The Woman in Black was originally a 1987 stage play by Stephen Mallatrat, if I said that right. It was originally by English author Susan Hill. She wrote a book. He adapted it to playwright. Then they adapted it from the playwright show to the movie with Daniel Radcliffe. I want to say it came out in 2010, somewhere around there. I was still in high school when I saw the first one, and I went with my dad. And let me tell you, okay, so I told you guys, right, I'm a cine geek, so it's all about, for me, when I see a movie or even go to a theater, like my wife and I are going to see a off-Broadway musical in a couple weeks, it's all about the tech. It's all about the behind the scenes, the stuff that's not just happening right in front of me. So The Woman in Black, are you guys familiar? Have you guys?
I'm not.
No.
Okay, so The Woman in Black, make sure you guys watch it with the lights on, first of all. And for those of you that are watching or listening to the podcast, a little bit of a spoiler. It's a spoiler alert, so just be cautious. Basically, there's this town that a lawyer is coming to settle the estate of a woman who had just died. And the story goes that the woman in black, if people start seeing this woman in black, this entity around the town, then children start killing themselves, is what it's about.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
It is very so. The new movie has Daniel Radcliffe in it, who's the most notable, I would say. And basically, he goes out to this house and he's working in this old lady's house that had died, that he's trying to settle the estate as a lawyer. And the crazy part about this house is that it has a road out to it, but is only accessible during low tide. By the way, stupid design. If anybody did that, absolutely stupid design. But basically, why I love this movie so much and why is it such a great psychological thriller is nothing ever happens right in front of us. So if you think about like horror movies, slasher films, when Freddy or Jason or Michael's killing somebody, it's right in front of you, right?
Yeah.
It's part of cinematography. It's called the thirds rule. You want 2/3 of the screen filled up. But that's only for like medium close-ups and stuff like that. If you're doing extended wide or ultra wide shots, it doesn't account. But the one scene that kind of stands out to me that kind of iconicizes the cinematography in this film is you're looking down a hallway, right? It's kind of a long shot. It's this long dark hallway, which mind you, in the house, my house in El Paso, there's a long dark hallway leading to my room. So this sucked later on. But long dark hallway. At the very end, you see Daniel Radcliffe working on something, right? He's down the hallway. His back is turned. He's kind of in the center of the frame, but you got so much space around you that he's just kind of a speck at the end of the shot. Then the camera starts slowly moving towards Daniel Radcliffe down the hallway, and you're just expecting something to jump out, right? You're just it's killing you. But this is the genius in that cinematography. There's a mirror over the mantle off to your left, right? And you're staring at Daniel Radcliffe because you're expecting something to go past the door, something to happen in the room, etc. As they're pushing the camera down, you see something move in that mirror. That's literally in the peripheral of the screen. It's not even in the main part of the shot, right? You see something move, and literally everybody in that theater, you see their heads go, "Did you see that?" And then immediately, as soon as you're there, there's something else that happens where Daniel Radcliffe is down the hall, and you're like, "Did you see that?" And then it's so subtle and there are some jump scares in there, but
I mean,
that entire time,
like every horror movie, you have to have the jump scares.
yeah, but oh
Yes.
my god, that entire time it's just like, did you see that? Did you see that? Or like the first time you see the woman in black, it's not just like, boo, she's there. It's you're sitting there and you're kind of looking at Daniel Radcliffe, and then off in the corner, you just kind of see like a face that had been there the whole time, like this white face that you just didn't realize because it was there when the shot opened. It like slowly turns away, and you're just like, did you see that? It's just it's wild. It is 100% wild. You guys definitely, if you haven't seen it, rent it. It is definitely worth the watch. It is absolutely terrifying because the storyline is good. The psychological part is unbelievable. It's just I am still scared to watch it to this day. Like I'm probably gonna go rent it anyways, but I am terrified of that film. Um, like one of the more iconic scenes is he's standing looking out the window because he heard someone knocking on the door that's not there, and then you're just standing there, and then all of a sudden a face just comes next to his head out of nowhere, and God, that's I jumped so high. I think I screamed a little bit in the theater when that happened. So yeah, Woman in Black. That's gonna be my all-time favorite, just because of the psychological side of it, as well as the writing. The writing is always really good. So, um, and going in line with that, have you guys ever seen was it The Haunting of Hill House on Netflix?
I don't have Netflix.
Oh, okay. What about you, Justin?
Um, no.
Okay, that's another one that's a excellent psychological thriller. So if you
Gotcha.
guys if you want like a more of like a season or like a series, Haunting of Hill House is also really good. So that was our discussion topic, scariest movie of all time. So I would say evenly we all talked about. I think I honestly think that the three of us like psychological thrillers.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and what's interesting is while they're all psychological thrillers, they're all done in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
it's great. It just goes to show that the human mind
Yep.
can be stimulated in different
In different ways.
ways. Yeah.
Now, before we sign off, I want to ask, what do you guys think is the greatest of all time? Not that we've seen, but the greatest of all time.
Now you see, can you really technically call it horror? I am a fan of Jack Nicholson. Okay, so The Shining.
The Shining.
Yeah,
That's a
it,
little scary. Yeah.
it's a little scary, not typically down what you would a horror
Red
film.
Rum. Red Rum.
Red Rum. But for me, it's always been like, oh nope, stop the world. Shining's on tonight. I gotta watch it.
I think it's more of a, yeah, I would say that that's up there. I would say in
Yeah.
terms of well written, you know. What do you think, Tommy or Justin?
I see. It's tough because horror isn't really
Cup of tea.
my. I wouldn't say cup of tea, but it's not like I don't generally venture down the horror avenue. So for me to say, oh well, this is the best of all time, it's subjective.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh, yeah.
I would say Stephen King's It.
Oh my God!
Oh
you
yeah.
took my yeah. I agree, 100%. 100%.
Both the original with oh, what's his name?
Oh, you mean the guy that sounds like Tommy?
Tim oh, I can't remember his name, but also the remake with Skarsgård.
Yeah, I've read, but I've only seen the remake one, the It, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's for me, and especially because it take place in Maine.
No, I think
thought
it's
he does
supposed to.
He does a lot of writing in
maybe?
Maine,
Yeah,
He
Stephen
does
King.
do New England a lot.
Yeah.
in New England. Yeah. So that's yeah, I would agree with you. It's well written because the writing is really good, and they stuck to the storyline with Stephen King's book.
Right.
Even Stephen King said he was impressed with it, and that says a lot. I'm a
Yeah.
huge Stephen King fan. In fact,
Well,
in fact,
and the thing with Stephen King is before
literally what I'm reading right now is
he will
fairy tale.
give the rights away, for someone to make a movie, he has to see the script and he has to see the writing of the script, so
Mhm.
that way he can actually, say, okay, yeah, that's fine, you can go and make this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, I mean, the fact that that says a lot to the fact they got the approval for it. So,
Yeah.
I would agree. And just so we're all on the same page, according to Rotten Tomatoes, which we know is a pretty good source of cinema
Yeah.
critique, the number one scariest film of all time is The Exorcist from 1973.
Okay.
I
Okay,
can see
I,
that.
I could, I could,
It's
I
definitely
could jump on
iconic.
that boat.
It's 100% iconic. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that would list something else. Oh my god, I'm obviously not gonna use that one. That said Scream was the number one.
What?
Nope. All right, hold on. Let me see. I just pulled up an article.
I want to see who I'm looking at.
Yeah. So this other one, which is IGN International Gaming Network, actually lists The Shining, Tommy, as 1980s The Shining and The Exorcist number 2. So the top two is The Exorcist and The Shining, which is what we said. So well done,
Yeah.
well done.
Yeah.
All right, and Justin, that'll bring us up to our closing.
Yeah. So with that, folks, another great episode of the Torque and Thrust Talk Show. We want to thank everyone that stopped in, dropped questions, comments.
Sorry. Click. You started off by
So,
yourself. I started us by screwing the sign off. Sorry, continue.
so we're gonna get out of here. On behalf of the Torque and Thrust Talk Show, I'm Justin.
I'm Tommy.
And I'm Bill. I'm so sorry. I screwed that. I screwed the pooch on that one. Just as a friendly reminder, though, our next episode, which will be episode 5, which will be next week, November 1st, at so it's gonna be Wednesdays all next month because of my schedule. So Wednesday, November 1st at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, we'll be doing our next talk show right here on Twitch TV, YouTube, and TikTok Live. For those of you that didn't catch us live, be sure to check out either tomorrow or the day after this Saturday, or I guess, yeah, Saturday. There'll be the audio recording out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, etc., for you all to listen to. But with that, everybody have a great and wonderful day, and we will see you on the next episode.
Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Take it.